My name is Emma Finnerty. I am a senior electronic media and broadcasting major, and I'm also double minoring in media studies and leadership studies. So coming into App State, I was super excited about the major and getting to work with cameras and just film a lot of really cool stuff and learn new skills I hadn't exactly gotten to learn yet, such as After Effects, which I just learned this past semester. I was just so excited to get to work with creative people and grow in that sense. I did get to do a lot of that. I got to meet some really cool people who did help me grow, but it also came with a lot of sexism and misogyny that I really could have done without. The major is mainly filled with male identifying people, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But with that came a lot of really big egos that I just didn't have the energy to compete with. So I just kind of had to let it happen. And I also didn't want to be called like a bitch or bossy or anything like that by trying to prove that I am just as worthy and I know just as much as them. It is really disheartening to walk into a room and being the only woman there. I had one class where that was the case. It was a really small class. There were 6 of us, but I was the only woman and there were a lot of group assignments. And for the first half of the semester, it was all self-select groups. I was always left alone. No one would include me, so I worked alone. And it was just, I felt like I was back in like 1st grade on the playground with no friends and no one wanted to play with me. I'm a broadcasting major. This major has barely any women in it. And it really sucks. I'm in a class that has no women in it. And it's so hard. No one talks to me in there. Ever. No one sits near me, no one talks to me, except the professor when I enter the room to say hello. It is so fucking hard to be in that class where every single assignment is one they're like, oh, you can do it with up to 3 people, and everyone has their group except me. So I do every assignment on my own, including the one I'm going to be doing tonight that requires at least 3 people. And I have to do it all by myself and take a billion extra steps to get there. And I just have to fucking deal with it. It was heartbreaking. I reached a breaking point one night and I was just sobbing all the way through setting up for my project I had to shoot. I ended up writing an email to my professor. I was just kind of like, hey, just so you know, this is how I feel in your class. Like, if it looks like I'm not trying or I am not wanting to contribute to groups, that is not the case. I just feel like no one wants to include me. And I felt like I was embarrassed sending that email. I sent that to him, and then the next day I had class at 8 a.m. and I went in and I was still really emotional about it. I was still really hurt. And he came up to me, because it was a 3-hour long class. We had a 15-minute break halfway through. He came up to me and was like, I am so sorry I didn't notice this. Thank you for bringing it to my attention, all this stuff, and I'll make sure that you don't feel like that through the rest of our course. And I was like, it made me feel really good. But once again, I just lost control of my emotions, went to the bathroom and cried for a little bit. It made me feel like he cared about my education, and he's actually become one of my favorite professors in the major. He really understands how we feel as people going into the field, because he is younger. Like, he's not like some of my professors who are like 50 plus years old. I still feel embarrassed about sending that email because I feel like, oh, like, that's so weak. Like, I should have just toughed it out, like, not said anything. Like, I would have gotten through. But it needed to be said, and I needed to say it, and I'm proud of myself for doing that. Some experiences I've had in this major, a professor of mine one semester, it was an 8 a.m. class. We would go in and I'd do my work, I'd take the notes, I'd listen, I'd be a respectful student, but there was one day where apparently I wasn't smiling enough in his class. So he made eye contact with me and said, oh, you should smile more in my class. And I just went blank. Surrounded by other people who weren't smiling. It was a classroom of maybe 30 people. 22, 23 of them were probably male. and the rest were female, and I just felt so embarrassed might be the best word. Maybe I looked a little bit too bitchy for him. Maybe that was it. Finding other women in the major to bond with was something that I did not even thinking of it. So when I started really taking classes within the major, it was all online. It was in the middle of COVID, and I just didn't really talk to anyone then, but I would see the women in my class and I would really hype them up. Like whenever we would do like peer reviews for things, I would just really make sure they knew that I supported their work, because there wasn't a lot of that, especially online. Once we went back in person, I just gravitated towards the women in my classes because I didn't like feeling outnumbered. It wasn't very fun. So I graduate college on May 13th at 5 p.m. and I currently have no idea what I'm doing when I walk that stage. I would really like to do some production assistant work, so some PA work I would really love to do. Just to see how productions work on a professional level, I think it would be super cool. But I also am really drawn to news broadcasting and how that works behind the scenes. I'm just gonna let the wind take me where it wants to. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens post-grad. If I had to say anything to gender minorities in male-dominated fields, I would say find your group, find your people who support you regardless, who build you up and give you constructive criticism and help you grow as a person and an academic, because they're hard to come by, but once you find that group, you'll be set. It will help you get through and you'll just flourish from there.